Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Pod Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I'm your host, and I'm your moderator, and it's good to be back here after a couple of weeks off. I've been traveling. I was in the Midwest, and that's going to be the topic of today's episode, but I was also out for Thanksgiving, and I hope everybody here who's listening from the United States had a great Thanksgiving with family or a Friendsgiving with friends, whatever it is. Why don't you go into the comments? Let me know where in the world you're connecting from. And then let me know what you did as special for Thanksgiving. Or if you got a question or comment about whatever's going on in today's episode, put it in the comments. We'll get it up on screen and we'll be able to share it with our guests today. And without further ado, I do want to introduce the rest of my guests today. Signed in right now, we have Dustin from the Chocolat Cafe in Rushville, Indiana. And then Lila Carvajal, who is the co-founder guiding force of Cocoa Supply. Thank you to you both for being here today. Right. And so, Dustin, what I want to do is I want to talk, I see all this stuff going on over my head because we're in a 3 layout. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide that. Yay. Because it's like a big tattoo over my forehead or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. So, Dustin, we're here because 10 days ago or so, I was in Rushville, Indiana. And I was in Rushville, Indiana, as you were too, Lila, for the inaugural Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival. And so why don't you give a sort of little, what your thoughts are about your expectations going in and what your thoughts are about coming out the other side.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me. And thank you both for coming to Rushville to have that great experience with all of us. So the expectations and all that fun stuff, we really honestly didn't know. So we were creating this festival that would be normally in bigger cities in a small town of around 6,000. And there's not a lot of, I don't think there's any other like chocolate festivals of this type, craft chocolate, in the Midwest anyway. So we're pioneering 2 different things. We're pioneering a craft chocolate festival in the Midwest, and we're also pioneering a bigger festival in a smaller town. So we just had ambition and we had a great team to work with. And it just started with that, with our network and with the ability to work with the town. The town was very supportive with everything we wanted to do. I'm new to this town. I opened up my business here in February. I haven't even been living here a year yet. So they took me in as their own, and they're just kind of an amazing community. So that made me feel really comfortable trying to do something this level. And I even mentioned at an earlier podcast we did, I asked them what level they wanted to go. If they just wanted to do a smaller one just for the state or something like that, or if they wanted to go big and do something Midwest and try to bring in international vendors and such. And they're like, let's go big. Let's go big. And that's when I knew these were my people. So we started assembling a team. And over the course of months, meeting different people that would either come to my shop and have ideas or want to be part of the team, we picked up new members and we just created this like dream team. It was amazing. So at like going through all this, I have a really hard time delegating. So my business is my wife and I. It's just us. And I just want to kind of control. I'm just used to that. So when this thing got so big, it's like impossible for me to have control over all these aspects, and then the things that are going on, I'm not even that familiar with yet because I'm new to the town. So I had to delegate a lot, and these people were amazing. And it showed during the festival, they were just bam, getting everything done. And it was just amazing. So I'm feeling great. I'm feeling really great about how everything came together, all the vendors coming, and the vendors being satisfied with all aspects, and our volunteers and organizers just knocking it out of the park. It was just an amazing thing.
So Dustin, what I want to do is I want to put a pin in it there for the moment, and I want to acknowledge 2 people who are listening at the moment and watching at the moment. The first is Mike King from Encore Coffee Company in Kansas City, Missouri, who is an exhibitor, and also Chell from Norway, Fjorden Chocolat in Stavanger in Norway, who was also an exhibitor at the festival. So thanks, guys, for joining us here today. And also joining the call is Tandy Peterson of Embers Chocolate. Her camera, there she is, Tandy Peterson of Embers Chocolate, from south of me here in Phoenix, Arizona, who was an exhibitor, and also Lila, who was not only an exhibitor, but was the title sponsor of the Midwest, this inaugural Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival. And I also need to point out is the innovation category sponsor for the Craft Chocolate Challenge. So Lila, why don't you talk about the experience of the festival, number one, as an exhibitor, you were a presenter, and also from your perspective is, why support something like this as the title sponsor? Because it's a pretty big financial investment to do all of those things.
Hi, Clay. Yes, Dustin. Nice to see you again, Tandy too. Well, first of all, I knew Dustin through you because we sponsored the Innovation Award last year. And at that point, it was just, we wanted to specifically not be involved. Obviously, we don't want to be part of a competition and somehow have to do with the results. We just said, here's the sponsorship and do it. And we obviously wanted to know the results, but that was we purposely left ourselves out. But then this idea came through you, Clay, and through Dustin to make the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival. And then Dustin was like, hey, you want to be the main sponsor? I don't know exactly how it's going. No, it's like, I like the idea of opening a new market in the East and West Coast and the rest of Europe. I think everyone is pretty familiar with craft chocolate, with even the idea of bean to bar. And, some embrace it, some we still have some work to do. But in a region like the Midwest, it is something that has never been targeted. It's kind of like always thought of, well, it is a luxury item, or it's more, it doesn't really go with lifestyle. And when Dustin came with this idea, at the beginning, I also said, well, I like the idea of, helping with a new market. We always are in for supporting anything that supports expanding the craft chocolate market, because we do believe that there's so much area that we still can take away from the bigger chocolate makers. And I do think that's beneficial for everyone, for the farmers, for even the consumer, for the planet, for going against anything that has to do with unfair labor practices. So we are always usually into helping out or sponsoring, if we can, anything that has to do with increasing or promoting craft chocolate. However, as we started to go into it, and again, at that point, I was like, okay, here's the sponsorship. Let me know if I can help. That was it. And then we started to Barb came in. I didn't know Barbara before, and she was so excited. And we started talking. Then we had this introductory meeting with Dustin, and then the ideas started flowing. And then we also started to see the connection between a farmers community in the Midwest and a farmers community in South America or any other part of the world. And that's really what drew me into this connection. That's when it came from, okay, let's be a sponsor, to we're being exhibitor, we're doing a speech, we are getting into design banners, we are getting into everything else that had to do to really make a success. At that point, I saw a potential not only to expanding a market or promoting craft chocolate. At that point, it was really a bonding experience, or even, something where the Midwest consumer can identify themselves with the farmers that are producing the chocolate. And I think that is one of the things I was very impressed as part of an exhibitor and as a speaker. The feedback of the interest was extraordinary. And I do think that that's also what we felt, all that love of a community that also felt very identified with this type of product.
So Lila, I want to put a pin in there because I want to go now to Tandy, right? And have her talk about her experience as an exhibitor. And Tandy, I believe you also gave a presentation. And so, Arizona is a long way to go from Arizona, not as far as Chell and Elmer Pineda from Honduras joined the chat, and we'll get him on there. He says, thank you very much. And, Mike and Chell and Elmer, if you have anything you'd like to share about your experience as an exhibitor, put it in the chat and get it up on screen. But Tandy, your thoughts, first time show, you're coming from Arizona. Obviously you've been very, very, well, not obviously, but you have been very, very successful at being a part of the Craft Chocolate Challenge. Your experiences, take about this, and if you've been at other shows, what you thought about this festival compared with other festivals that you've participated in.
I thought this festival was a blast, and Dustin found me randomly on Facebook, so it was serendipitous, or Instagram years and years ago, and the whole purpose of the Craft Chocolate Challenge was really to introduce, makers that didn't have the budget for larger events, to kind of get started, get some feedback, so that way when they go to, invest in those larger contests, they have the ability to, actually do well or whatever. So that is ultimately what my goal was, to be part of it. And then I have done very well, fortunate to do really well in the Craft Chocolate Challenge. So that led me to being part of the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival. It's a long ways away, but I'm happy to support. I mean, the Midwest crowd was amazing. I think all the people were really open to trying new chocolate and getting excited. My chocolate is not normal chocolate compared to everybody. I kind of am a little bit whimsical in my flavor profiles.
Not normal? How is that possible in doing stuff? So tell us, share if you can right now, what your single most popular bar is, the first one you sold out of, and why you think that might have been such a popular product.
My elote, or sweet corn white chocolate, which nobody would, it's Midwest, so it's corn, so I should have known everybody's going to love corn, but no, and it's actually kind of cool because that bar was entered in the first year of the Craft Chocolate Challenge. It's one that's been on my menu from day one, and I told Dustin, I was like, I don't know how this bar is going to be received, because based on my experience, people loved it or hated it. And sure enough, the results came back, and I got hundreds on the board, and then I got 50s on the board, and it was split down the center. It was so unique. And then I kind of took that feedback and took, I thought it was a little tart, which maybe kind of was off-putting for some people, and, really got to read all the feedback, which was extensive, through the Craft Chocolate Challenge, and was able to tweak that recipe. And then I entered that bar this year in the Americas competition, and it won silver, and then went on to win a gold in world. So I think that just having the Craft Chocolate Challenge is like a stepping stone into that. Gold at world is always our goal, but it's never anything I anticipated. I was hoping it would do well, but to get that award is pretty amazing. Right. And then I did that speech that morning. So I think talking about chef chocolate and how I approach chocolate as an ingredient, and as, kind of a plate for the white chocolates, to kind of create unique chocolates that is fun for anybody, but also something you can kind of eat throughout the day, was my story. And then I came back to my booth right after the speaking thing that I did, and there was 5 or 6 people crowded around my booth trying to buy the elote bar, which we tasted in the speech too. So
All right. So what I want to do, if I can right now, is I came around at the end of the festival, and I said, hey, if there's a bar you'd like me to taste during this, please let me know, and I will do it. So you handed me this croissant 45% milk chocolate bar. Here it is. I'm going to stop. It's probably backwards for everybody, but I'm going to hold it up here, and this is what the back of the bar looks like. And I'm looking at the ingredients, and I'm going, because it is a Tandy Peterson joint, it is an Embers chocolate joint. Looking at the ingredients, I'm going, okay, I can see how a croissant, which is crisped up as something on the back of a bar, not necessarily inclusion, could be a real cool thing. But then I'm going, it's got red miso paste in it. I'm going, and it's a sourdough croissant, which is not on the front. So walk me through the creative decision-making process that led to that, and then I'm going to taste it. So, because it's only 11 o'clock in the morning here, and it's never too early for chocolate.
It's never too early. This is not my first chocolate of the day, for sure. This croissant milk chocolate. So I I've always wanted to sell chocolate to some bakeries so that they can put it inside the croissant. And so there's a local bakery that makes this sourdough croissant that I thought was just amazing. And it's like one of my favorite things to eat in the morning. And they had some bean to bar chocolate that they were using there from a different company. And I was like, you know what, this is super cool, but what if we reversed it? So I actually did my version of a pain au chocolat, but I put the chocolate or I put the croissant on the outside. But I don't just do traditional milk chocolate with sourdough croissant. So I was trying to find something that really played on the bean that I was using, which had these like kind of tart and fruity notes. And one of my friends had just given me some of his fresh red miso. So I freeze dried it, ground it up, and we added miso to it. So, but I think that the miso adds this really cool kind of tropical, like fruit tartness with like salty salinity to the chocolate that wasn't there, like that was there, but not amplified before. So my goal is always to amplify the initial flavors.
And I have to say that in smelling it, I mean, there is an interesting mix between what I think of as red miso, right? That aroma profile, as well as the sourdough component of the croissant. There is an interesting mix back and forth. They're both fermented, and cocoa beans are fermented, and so there's this interesting, parallel of flavors that's drawn through three ingredients that are fermented, which is quite unusual. I mean, it doesn't say where the beans are from on the label, or at least I don't see it. Is that a secret?
No, these are from Uganda.
Okay.
Yep. Nutty, fruity. It's the Simaliki forest, so it has like a little bit of that bright fruit, but mostly like fudgy, like pecan undertones.
Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff you say comes through. I mean, when you think about a croissant, you don't normally think about an acidity component, or normally the chocolate is usually toned down and all the rough edges and all the character of the chocolate. It's supposed to be subordinate to what the pastry is. And so, and often they're still butter forward. But there's a really, really nice textural component. And I recommend people taste this bar if they buy it from you. And by the way, I should say that if you go over to The Chocolate Life in the post for today's episode, there's a list of the 12 chocolates that I'm going to try to get through today. And there's a link to your website if people want to go purchase the bar.
Sure.
But if you do decide you want to go purchase the bar, what I want to recommend that you do is try the bar twice. Once with the croissant on your tongue, because you'll get a very different flavor profile, and once with the chocolate on your tongue. Right? Because
and
yeah, go
I
ahead.
always tell people that my chocolate is not slow melting chocolate, it's eating chocolate. It's like so unique that I always tell people when they put it in their mouth, like score it with their tongue, start to get it moving around and eat a bite. And then you can always enjoy the savory flavors. But all the chocolate's really meant to kind of like get those flavors initially.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Before we go any further, what I want to do is I want to talk. We have a little note from Elmer Pineda from Yohoa in Honduras. He says that one of the nicest experiences since we started in the chocolate worlds, the entire festival, I assume. The organizers went out of their ways to help us all, the exhibitors, and the people of Rushville were incredibly nice to us. In my speech, I had the most receptive and curious people asking very interesting questions. An overall beautiful experience. What I want to mention also is that, Dustin, I got to say, the town of Rushville, I mean, in my opening remarks on Saturday morning, I was like, I had this thought, why are we doing this in the middle of nowhere? And you quickly come to the fact that, we're in the center of somewhere, right? Which is really, really important. But there's only one hotel in Rushville, and it doesn't have great TripAdvisor ratings. Let's put it charitably. So one of the great things about being in a small town, which is what you were able to do, is you arranged for an alternative for people coming in. I know, Tandy, you didn't take advantage of that. I don't know if Lila, if you took advantage of it, but I certainly did. And so I stayed in a fabulous house, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. So Dustin, why don't you talk about, some of the things that you as a committee, others might have seen as like, here's this obstacle I need to overcome. How do we turn it into something to our advantage? Because I'm in a small town, or we're in a small town.
Yeah, so we had several of those And definitely lodging was one of them. At first, we were thinking of just setting up vendors at a nearby, a different town, but a nearby hotel in a different town, and getting a discounted rate for them to stay there. Through the Chamber of Commerce, they have some different connections in different communities. So we thought about that, but then we kind of were hoping we had better options, but we just seemed pretty limited there. And then a team member came by, a new team member, and she's like, what if we do this? And, we work on a homestay type program. And it was genius. It was just great. So she said that she would take care of that and make those connections. And she knew who she could ask and trust with where vendors could stay. And we could start it that way and see where it goes. And that's what she did. And she knocked it out. And then we, as the committee, had people help her create these little gift baskets for vendors. And then we put together something to also give to the host families to show appreciation for them taking in our vendors. And it was just it was magical. It was great. So I hosted Barb. And then there were several others that in the community that hosted vendors. And so far they've just created, what I've heard is they've both created great relationship with each other. And this will also make them feel vendors comfortable coming back or want to come back and see their new friends. It's a really nice feeling. And for me to come to this town, I was attracted to this town for a reason. And I was so happy that I could share that because I had that feeling. They welcomed me. They were very thankful for me of choosing to come to their town and all of these things. And I was so happy to see that be given to others that are coming to our festival, where the locals were coming up to the vendors and thanking them for coming and sharing their chocolate and their passion. They said it many times, thank you for sharing your passion with us. And we're so excited to learn about it. And I'm like, this is great. So all of that was just fantastic for me to see that come together and to have the team, think that way and create that. It was just really special. So I'm kind of really proud.
So Lila, you indicated that you had a homestay. Is that correct? Could you tell us all a little bit about your experience with your homestay?
Yes. I thought it was genius. I mean, the idea of coming to a small town as a vendor, you're coming there and you have suddenly someone that's from in town and she was like, oh, you can do that. You can. And then you have starting to have, it is on both sides. On one side, I was excited to feel a little bit as an insider of the town and not just, a strange alien that was coming for a festival and didn't know anyone. I was a little bit, have this chats and have a little bit of an insight or someone that's completely not into chocolate or doesn't know my world, and we had an exchange. And on the other side, I think it also made the people that were doing the homestay really share their, such a welcoming. Their hospitality was outstanding. It was something that you always hear about, and you suddenly feel this small town charm where you are in someone's home and just here's the water, here's the kitchen, and why don't you get this? And and they welcome you with food, with love, with chatting. And I do think it just brought from both sides a great experience, from the vendors being able to feel welcomed by the town, and from the people that we stayed. I think we hope at least that we also made them feel that, how exciting it was for us to be in their town and share their town with us. And the little bags were also genius. I mean, it was so heartwarming to see the little elementary school sharing and a little Rushville cutting board. It was just so welcoming. I think you really nailed the part of making this idyllic small town welcoming experience that normally you only hear or just see in the movies, and it sounds so magical, and that's what I call.
Right. There's a kind of Bedford Falls, It's a Wonderful Life aspect to it. I wondered if there was any sledding, but Barbara at Mocha Moose told me there was sledding. And next year, if there's snow on the ground, we need to figure out a way to go sledding while we're there. For everybody, this is the house where I had a homestay. Elmer Pineda was also there, along with
Caesar.
I'm sorry, Carlos from
Caesar.
Cacaitos. I'm sorry, Cesar Aguiar from Cacaitos. So this is the house. It was built in 1876. It's the home today of the Wilkie family, and Wendell Wilkie was a presidential candidate in 1940, lost to FDR. It's one of 3 Italianate mansions. I mean, the housing stock in this town is just really, really quite remarkable. Not something I would have thought of originally. But this is the home where I'm staying at, and here is the main hallway with the original wooden detail on the stairs. We're looking into the formal dining room. It's under renovation, so this is the formal dining room. Here is one of the main 2 parlors off the front door. This is one of the bedrooms. It was just an insanely beautiful place to stay. My host was absolutely Laura Selm, who's a direct descendant of Wendell Wilkie. The house is still in their family. Was a fabulous host, provided a lot of stuff, and gave this wonderful tour of the history of the home and its importance to the town. It was just really quite remarkable. I've been going to festivals for 20 some odd years now, and that's the first time this has ever been a part of the festival experience. I did talk, I think, with Elmer, who said he was in Seattle one year, and one of the people, not the organizers, arranged a homestay. But this is the first time that it had been done. And I know that Kjell, who hopefully he's watching, but he said connecting from Norway. And one of the things I know that Kjell said is that his experience with his host, especially as a non-American, right, and this was one of his first trips to the United States, just actually completely transformed his experience of the entire festival. So I think that, if I had to pick a highlight, that was one of it. Tandy, even though you weren't doing a homestay, my guess is when you checked into the hotel, there was one of these little gift bags for you, which included this wonderful letter. Mine was from a 4th grader by the name of Asher. It was just lovely, a little thing about, what you'd expect a 4th grader to write about, thank you for visiting my town kind of stuff. Did you get that same impression with what you're doing?
Yes, the town was so welcoming. Like everybody I met, everybody I talked to along the way. I actually went to Mocha Moose on one of my first days there, and I was just doing some of my touch-ups on my speech and making sure I was all lined up. I asked them for some paper. They handed me paper. They were super sweet. And then as I got ready to leave, I went to say bye to the people that were at a table nearby, and they were like, "Oh, are you here for the chocolate festival?" And I said, "Yeah." And Joe's like, "Are you Ember's chocolate?" So it's just kind of cool. It gave me very much like small town vibes. Like Layla was saying, it's like straight out of a movie where you're like in the know in the random coffee shop, which I'm sure would have been the Craft Chocolate Inn had we been open. But yeah, no, everybody was so welcoming. Everything was cute. There was nice touches everywhere.
So this is the mosaic floor as you walk into the Rush County Courthouse. This is the courthouse, I believe. Yes, from across the street. This was one of 2 venues. And I got to say, Dustin, it's like a bold move, to have a chocolate festival spread across 5 venues. Fortunately, most of the people who visited were from the town or from the county. And so everybody knew where everything was. So it could have been a disaster, but it wasn't. But, here is the Rush County Courthouse. This is setting up in the 201 building, which is catty corner across the street. Here we are inside the courthouse setting up. And so you get a sense that, this is not some sort of bland industrial hotel ballroom kind of setting. The courthouse has been there for, I don't know how long. And you're right there in the main hallway. And even though you have to go through security, it was really quite a lovely and remarkable experience. Lila, here's your stand, which was in the 201 building. This is Dwar Chocolate from Minnesota, I'm thinking. Here we have Chalks and Boxes from Chicago. And for some reason, my finger is in the way. I'm not entirely sure why that is. Here we've got This is London Co. from Peace on Fifth, right?
Oh, it's definitely my booth.
Is that your booth? Okay, it's okay, Tandy. It's your booth. I will let you know there. Oh, you're right. You had the taste for color. I don't know why I'm confusing that with what it was that Dustin was doing. Here's from Encore, Mike King, what they're doing. Maverick Chocolate from Cincinnati. I mean, one of the great things, I had an opportunity to do, Dustin, is on Sunday. Chell and I went down to Cincinnati and got a chance to spend a couple of hours in the Maverick factory store, and learned, among other things, that he had to move before the end of November. And so he was at this festival, right? And in the midst of, okay, I need to tear apart my factory store and move it in the middle of the holiday season. So I want, it's a good reflection of, what people were thinking about being there as a part of the festival. So Lila, if I can, I want to again go back to this notion that you don't necessarily sell directly to members of the general public, right? But you had a bunch of customers, right, at this festival who were there, and you're all about supporting the growth of the craft chocolate movement. Is there one particular moment where all of this came together for you, whether it was, set up on Friday or during the day on Saturday, or any point where you said, oh my gosh, all of this stuff is coming together, and I'm happy that I'm here in rural Indiana?
There were two moments, actually. One was when I was at the booth. Normally, we are not the coolest stand, we're the one that, yes, we have the pot, we have some machetes, but for the general public, we're normally okay, they want to more about the chocolate bars. They're fascinated, for example, what Tandy does, because it has that's some experience that's directly to them. Normally, we don't bring that experience. We bring the story of the back end, but not really the experience that they can sample or test or be fascinated, because that's direct experience to the consumer. So the first, I think it was the second day in the morning when we had, and then suddenly I have these people, and they came to us, and I was like, oh, what did you do? And they started to see the machetes, and they started to see the pots, and they were like, oh, and it was like, well, we normally don't do products for the consumer, but we do the hard work. It's like they do the cool stuff, also hard work, but we also do a lot of hard work that's normally not seen in the final package, or doesn't sound as exciting. And it was so nice to feel that they were like, oh yeah, we know how that feels. I was like, I guess, you eat, I don't know, something made out of corn and corn muffins, and the baker obviously has a lot of credit, but the corn that went, or how you made it. So there was this connection that I had a lot of interest, in the sense that I normally don't get from any of the I would say, larger cities. And that was a little bit of a home feeling. It felt like, hey, I'm here with my peeps. And on the other hand, it was also when I was explaining also during the speech, and so what we try to do in the craft chocolate is also create this origin, that same as coffee, where you feel like, oh, this comes from this place, and want to know about the farmers and so on. And I think one of the girls was jokingly telling me, those ladies in the front row that were asking you all those questions, they're thinking, how do we make a Rushville corn, also an origin? So it was that interaction that for me, it was that was the personal part, or the part that I felt that it was a great experience from my end, or from this being more like an ingredient supplier to be, and then a manufacturer, and also partially a grower, to be in that event. And of course, seeing how welcoming they were also to the craft chocolate, and explaining a little bit the previous part that comes with fermentation, how much work goes into the bean, and then that the next step is what all the craft makers do. That is the second part. It's also a lot of work. I think they appreciate the work and the skill that goes into that, and I think it was one of the biggest gains that I felt we had, is this appreciation from someone, from a community that is also agricultural and very hard working on that to be like, oh, now we see how much work goes into chocolate, from the growing, from fermentation, from the processing, from all the skills of making the chocolate, the flavor profiles, and so on. I think that was the moment I was like, I'm really happy I came.
Great. So what I want to do before I touch the next point, Lila, and that's this. All right. Because I think it's really, really interesting. What I want to do is a quick note from Chell. Again, how are things in Stavanger? And I'm glad to hear. So we drove in from Indiana, from Chicago. I met him at the airport. We drove down through the snow on Tuesday night. We had the opportunity to go to Cincinnati and then driving back to Chicago after the festival. So it was really, really wonderful opportunity to get to meet Chell. We've spoken on the phone. I judged his chocolate before. And for me, the opportunity to meet people in a really low stress and way, meet people that I knew of, but hadn't had an opportunity to actually get to chat with or get to know, made this festival, very, very special for me. And what Chell says, the homestay program added an extra level to the whole festival experience. It really gave the whole welcome to Rushville a unique insight into the local community and made new friends. Chocolate friends is a great thing. And then Mike at Encore Coffee says, great festival. Rushville showed up. Absolutely. That's a great way of describing it, Mike. Rushville showed up. And it was great meeting fellow makers. Absolutely. Dustin, one of the things that the festival did, I think is part of the welcoming, is that you hosted 2 dinners. So one was at the local Elks Lodge, and the food experience was everything you'd expect from a local Elks Lodge in the Midwest. But it was great to sit people down. And then there was a something which, Lila Cocoa Supply help sponsor at a local bourbon bar then after the festival, right? So I know that some of us didn't get to bed until 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning drinking bourbon afterward. But Lila, tell us about, again, everybody, I'm sorry if this is backwards for you, but you have this tropical mystery box, right? Which if you open it up, there's all this stuff in it. Tell us about, why you created this and whether or not you're going to make it available to makers or something like it, because it's a fabulous idea. I just got to say it's a fabulous idea. So tell me.
It was brainstorming with Barb and Dustin, and that's one of the things that happened was we just got also excited about many things, and we diverted a little bit about what the festival was. And at some point, Dustin was like, hey, we're going to have before the Elk Center, maybe we can do something, maybe a tasting and so on. And I was planning before the Salon of Chocolat of New York was moved to December to have an after party where we were going to serve cocktails, but not of chocolate, because I always say, if I bring chocolates to a chocolate maker, my chocolate's not going to be that great. You guys do something completely different, and the skills are, what Tandy and every one of you does is like out of this planet. I don't, that's not my skill. But we have, because we go to farms, and it all started going to farms and being like, hey, we also have pitahaya, dragon fruit. Can you also get that? And I don't bring fresh fruit because it is a nightmare in customs and perishables and so on. But we have a small freeze dryer. This is small, but it works so far for the demand that we have. And so we started not only doing the pulp, but also doing other fruits. And we have some quantities. And I was like, let's make of that different cocktails. So that was the original idea for this after party of the salon. That got canceled. And then I was like, you know what? I don't like to make a tasting of something, beans and so on. All of you get samples. All of you know the different places. But how about we do pairings with fruits? Because that's what we wanted to do also with the cocktails. And this idea came into the other one. And then Barb was like, yeah, we can do the different chocolates. So we started really brainstorming and got excited. And she provided all the different chocolates that she had to pair with, because we want one dark, one milk, one white. And I was the one who was like, okay, I'm going to give you the fruit powders. But then talking to Barb, it was like, how do we do that? If you take just plain powder in your mouth and you melt it, it's just going to have a texture issue. So I decided to put it together with cocoa butter, deodorized cocoa butter, to minimize the flavor and do different tiny bars. I put like around the 50-50 so that it balances out normally what the cocoa solids would be. My tempering is horrible, so please don't. I was just like, let's get it in, out, put it in again. Not my skill, So, but in the part of flavors, I always, when I had to do them once, just for one of those TikTok things or so, I tried it. I was like, this is something I didn't expect as a chocolate. This is, and that's when the idea came together. So Barb did all the work of putting it nicely, all that cute little box, explaining it, all putting the chocolate. I made those chocolate bars and we put it together and we color coded it. And we haven't given the results yet. I'm gonna mail them out.
I was just gonna ask. I'm in suspense right here. Like, what is this?
Right.
You-
I didn't fill out the form. I wanted to bring it back and have everything intact so I could show it today.
I will
But-
definitely send out the results by the end of this week. You will get a nice card with everything that we have. And then because I do think a lot of people, from what I read, they really, some of them got it, some of them didn't get exactly what it was. And that's a very interesting aspect too. You realize how it changes the flavor from when you have the dry powder. The shock of that sugar or acidity or so is too high. So you get that initial shock. It really made a difference. We were thinking, how do we do that? Do we put oil? And then it was like, yeah, but oil is going to make it waxy. Do we do that? And again, I'm not a chef. I'm not, but the one thing I know is what's compatible or not with cocoa butter. So I was like, no, the best way to do it is with cocoa butter itself. So it came. I don't know if we're going to do them as something we're selling, because it's just, again, it's a lot of work. But what we're thinking is putting different 50-gram packages, a little bit of deodorized cocoa butter, and sending like a tasting kit for anyone who wants to try it. Because I like the idea too. When of course, I snacked some of them. Of course, I didn't have Barb's chocolate at that point, but I was like, this probably goes well with that, And I do think that that's the one of the things, of course, we promote craft chocolate making, but the other thing that I really believe in is an innovation. That's why we also sponsor the Innovation Award. And I do think those type of things, when you have that aha moment and you're like, this could actually work together. That is the one thing that craft chocolate makers can make that the big companies cannot. They have to go through marketing department, budgeting. They have to go, we go to let's cook together and see what comes out.
Yeah, that's one of the great reasons why I think Tandy, I like the fact that you're here. I was able to recognize one of them immediately, but that's because I tasted the fresh fruit when I was in Puerto Quito, which is the lulo, which is a type of citrus fruit.
Yes.
Tandy, did any of them just jump out at you and say, oh my God, this is a flavor. I know exactly how I want to incorporate it into a new chocolate bar? I mean, did you have that sort of aha moment as a result of doing this? Or are you going, well, I'm going to wait until I figure out if I'm right at any of my guesses?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was tough. I think that's part of it. I also think a lot of us tasted it when we were like, this full of chocolate, maybe. So we were maybe
and
a little
fried chicken and mashed potatoes.
Yeah, and then one of them, which I assume is hibiscus. I don't want to give it away, but one of them is very, very tart and has a lot of hibiscus flavors. And I actually use a lot of hibiscus in my chocolate. And then I was convinced another one, which maybe we're gonna fight over this, but I think one's cacao pulp. Which I have been wanting to get my hands on forever, and I know Cocoa Supply sells it, so I'm really hoping that's what it is. So, but yeah, so I mean, it was more fun for me because I work with a lot of ingredients like this and kind of meld them together. So it was fun to kind of taste them and kind of guess, and we really don't have any direction to go to if we haven't seen the full Cocoa Supply list. So it was really fun trying to guess everything. And everybody has different areas where they're from, like you were talking about, like soursop or like a specific citrus from a specific region that we may have never had anything like it. Like I think I said yuzu or something like that in one of them.
Yeah. So Dustin, did you go through this tasting exercise?
So Friday evening, I was worn out. I wasn't feeling so great Friday evening. I drug myself to the dinner and tried to eat some chicken, but I was not feeling good. And I was hoping I wasn't getting sick, but I was just basically, my body was rejecting me from just preparing so much and doing everything. So I didn't get into the box. Barb saved me one, so I do have it. And it's in my house with tons of other chocolate that I have from the festival. I spent a lot of money and traded a lot of chocolate over that weekend. But I do have it, and I'm wanting to get into it, and I definitely will. I want to have the right time to sit down and do it. But yeah, it was,
You have to do it this week. You have to do it this week before Lila sets out the results. So I want to let everybody know. I just want to introduce Sander Wolf, who is the founder of the Dallas Chocolate Festival, who's here joining today. I think he's shouting out in solidarity to you, Dustin, solidarity with you, when he says, been there. And then I also want to give a quick shout out to Mike King, who wants to recognize your wife, Dustin, and the cheesecake she made, Mai's cheesecake, which had the cacao pulp topping. I think almost everybody who was there asked you for the recipe. I mean, there are some people I know who just said, okay, forget the rest of dinner. I'm going for the cheesecake. I think people, because life is short, eat dessert first. I think some people followed that, and it's like, I'm surprised there was any cheesecake left in the city at the end of it. So we just want everybody, again, wants to give a quick shout out to the support that, your family members and Sophia, just the joy in her face as she was walking around and interacting with people. It was a very, very family friendly event. And the Kids Zone was amazing. Nettie Atkinson was just Atkinson. Need to make sure we get it properly. Just the work that she did and all of the support that she got for doing that was, really, really quite amazing. Her willingness to step in at the last moment when one of the presenters couldn't make it. And so in an impromptu presentation, it was just, that level of coming together, I think, for me, exemplifies what it means to be part of a small town and a part of a farming community. That's what people do for each other. And, as somebody who spent, the last year in a relatively small town, 45,000 people in the middle of Arizona, but, Phoenix is how many people, Tandy? Over 1 million now? In New York City, which is Lila, even though you go to Guayaquil and you're on the farms, you're in New York City right now. And I spent most of 40 years in the New York metro area. We really do forget, right, just what that small town connection means to people. So it was really, really wonderful for me. And I think the other thing, if you're watching this at any other point and you're thinking about sponsoring or otherwise exhibiting at this festival in the future, that one of the things that the experience that you had, Lila, with Barb and Dustin and coming up with this tasting box, is there's an opportunity to develop really, really interesting experiences for people that if you were to go, for example, to the organizers of a big international festival, or some other festival, other places, you may not have the opportunity to engage in these kinds of creative exercises because the festival format doesn't allow it. I think that aspect of this is one of the things that I think it excites me about continuing engagement. What I do want to do, and hopefully Chell is still on and Elmer is still on and Mike is still on, but I went to Chell and I said, I want to taste a chocolate bar today. He said, pick one. And I'm looking through and I picked something out of his British Heritage collection, which is a rum and raisin bar. And I chose this one specifically because I remember taking a tasting class once from Robert Lanx in New York City at the La Maison de Chocolat on the Upper East Side. And Monsieur Lanx said that his favorite bonbon that he made was a rum raisin bonbon. I forget the name of it. And I'm a huge fan of rum raisin ice cream. And so I wanted to give it a taste. Doesn't say on the front if it's a milk chocolate or a dark chocolate. Hey, Chell, you got to think about that the next time you put this together. I'm looking at the back, and it is a milk chocolate. Anyway, so it's I think the way this is being done, and Chell, you can let me know if this is how you do it. What you're doing is you're macerating the raisins in the rum. Oh my gosh. The raisins are chewy. As a matter of fact, they get sticky when you're opening the wrapper. The raisins are chewy. There's this hint of the alcohol in the nose, in the rum. I don't know if it says, I can't get at which rum it is. The texture is wonderful in the melt. It sort of reminds me across of this bonbon, which is a ganache, a rum raisin ganache, with small chopped bits of raisins in it, the one from La Maison de Chocolat. And the ice cream which is wonderful, wonderful combination between the two. Tandy, I don't know, did you get a chance to go around? I think Chell was right next to you, or no, Maverick was between. Your mic is muted, Tandy. Your mic. Yeah.
Sorry. I was like, yeah, I did. I was just looking at my box of treats that I got there, and I got a couple from Chell, but I think I got all his single origins. So I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to buy some. But yeah, I've got some from like Chocolate Thunder. I've got some from Craft Chocolate Inn. I've got some from Dwar. Yeah. Encore. Yeah, I think that was a huge part. I mean, I know Mike said it earlier, but just being, I mean, it's just so infectious to be around other makers. I think it truly re-inspires and reinvigorates everybody you're surrounded by. And you have the opportunity to talk, you know, business. You can talk what works, what doesn't work, getting good ideas, how you work with specific origins. You get to taste specific origins. It's just having like something like this where you can bounce ideas off other people and have everybody be so welcoming. Really, really cool.
There was also an ebb and flow to people coming in and out. And so there were times when you were slammed. I mean, just bang, you know, you were slammed. But there were times when things slowed down a little bit. You actually had a chance to walk across and talk with the other exhibitors and make those connections. What I want to do now is, so this is from Elmer Pineda of Yohoa in Honduras. And by the way, I do want to let everybody know that all of the chocolates I will be tasting, and I will continue the tasting exercise if you guys want to leave after we do this. But there will be links to all of the makers whose chocolate I am going to be tasting today. So, and most of the time, the link is directly to their web shop, to the page where you can purchase this stuff. So I wanted to go, not always the case. I mean, Elmer, I think I remember you have a place in the United States where you can purchase the chocolate, but for some reason I could only find the Honduran website to taste stuff. But this is an 85%. It's not on the website. I think this is a bar. It's got a hand-drawn label on the front. These come from a region of Honduras. I've never been. I'm looking forward to going there at some point. So you expect an 85% chocolate to be intense, but there's an underlying fruitiness. Did you get this one, Tandy? But there's an underlying fruitiness that goes along with I think in another bar, perhaps a lighter bar, you might think that this was over roasted, but there is this wonderful complementarity between the level of the roast, which I think is a little higher than we would normally expect, and the fruitiness of this bar. It starts off at the chocolate end of things, and it just sort of bangs back and forth around your mouth. I mean, the texture is great. I mean, the refinement is great. It's, if I think about all the bars of yours, Elmer's, that I've tasted and I've judged in the Craft Chocolate Challenge, you have, done a good job of mastering the technique of making chocolate. And so, again, if you like an 85%, you're looking to support a farmer who's making chocolate in a producing country, which is a thing that I love to support as well. It's a great bar to start with. And Elmer, if what you want to do is you want to email me. Okay. So a couple of questions. That's right there at the Chocolate Cafe. We'll get to that. So, Dustin, one of the things that you walked away from at the Chocolate Cafe is you walked away with a lot of these bars from international producers, as well as winners of the Craft Chocolate Challenge. I can't list them all on the post for today's episode, but if you're interested, for example, a winner of the Craft Chocolate Challenge in many years has been Sweets Escalier out of Japan, and you have some of their bars. This is the Venezuelan Chuao milk. We'll get to that, but there are a bunch of other things, winners. So if you are interested, you can go and email Dustin and say, what do you got? I'm interested in purchasing them. And he can, they can get them from you. Do you have like a number one favorite of all the things you've tasted, or are you so tasted out you don't know everything?
I'm pretty tasted out, but I still love Chell's Filipino dark chocolate bar. I hadn't had that since season 2. when he took home, I think it was a silver in the dark. Replaced, and it was a great bar. And yeah, I had that over that weekend, and I've remembered, oh, yes, I love this bar. I love that one a lot. So that one easily popped up in my head, but I have tasted so much chocolate.
I got to admit, I don't often get chocolated out as a judge. Sometimes you have to do 20, 30, 40 chocolates in a day. But I have to admit, by the time the end of Sunday came around, it's like Saturday came around, I don't think I can taste another chocolate. So I wanted to say that Elmer said this 85% bar is going to be named Mahogany after a lot of the cacao trees, which are surrounded by mahogany trees on his farm. So I think that's a great idea. Mike King wants to say, he comes in and says, agrees with you, Dustin, on the Philippine bar from Fjorden. I have to say that after tasting like 30 bars from Coco Camilli, it's like, okay, tasting another bar for Coco Camilli, if it's on its own is a single origin, becomes a challenge for me. I'm looking for Uganda. I'm looking for other origins, interesting places in Ecuador, that I can get something which is new. And interesting flavor combinations. Tandy, I'm a huge fan of the way you play with flavors and bring in cultural references into chocolate in new and interesting ways. That cherry bar, which I'm really sad about as a judge, which I thought was amazing. The Dreams of Thailand, all the stuff that you do is like, and it's why we created this innovation award, because to encourage people to enter things that maybe it's not it's not going to be up there with like a 2-ingredient single origin chocolate in terms of purity of flavor, but oh my gosh, when you think about the flavor profile and everything that went into it texturally and things like that, it's really, really strong. So I do want to go to Mike King, because I know Mike is in the audience. Mike King at Encore in Kansas City. I had the great good fortune when I was moving to Arizona last year. I stopped in Kansas City specifically to spend time with Mike. It was great to catch up with him at the festival. Mike, I don't see where the origin of the beans is on this bar, but it is a 70% dark chocolate and sea salt. And one of the challenges when you're sprinkling sea salt on the back is it tends to get sprinkled unevenly. And so there is a challenge associated with, okay, does the chocolate stand up on its own, right, when there's not much salt on it, right? And how does the chocolate change when there's a lot of salt? And, Mike is a coffee roaster. And one of the great things that you get when you taste his chocolate is he understands how to roast, which is really quite lovely. And again, if you've got a piece of chocolate where you have salt on the back like this, that what you might want to do is try, if you can find another piece, try it 2 ways. Once with salt on your tongue and once with the chocolate on your tongue, because it will completely change how you perceive it. And this is a extremely well-made 70%. I mean, the texture of it is nice. The bite of it is nice. The melt is very nice. There's Mike is commenting, it's a blend of Zorzal, which is Dominican Republic, and Camino Real, which I'm not entirely sure I know where Camino Real is from. But you get the kind of complexity in the chocolate alone when the salt's not there, which comes from the blending. I mean, there's a little bit of bright fruity acidity up in the top of the mouth and in the nose with his underlying chocolate base, which makes this a really, 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 really lovely bar to taste. Before we go too much further, I want to say thank you very much to the mayor of Rushville, Indiana. I got a key to the city. I know, Lila, where's yours? Did you bring yours to the parade? Lila was also given a key to the city. This was, I mean, a huge honor, and completely and totally unexpected on a Saturday morning as we're walking across the street from the Chamber of Commerce office to the the Princess Theater, which is in the same building. It used to be a Masonic Lodge, which is where Town Hall is located. So we're in this theater, and I got to say, even though you might not have thought of it, Dustin, the fact that they did a triple feature of all of the Willy Wonka movies was brilliant for people who didn't want to come to that or did want to come to the festival. They got an opportunity to sit down and watch all the Willy Wonka films. I think that's a great idea. I wished at times I could have just bailed on the festival and sit down in a movie theater and consume large quantities of popcorn and just relax. But I didn't have that opportunity. But again, this is the sort of things that you can do in a small town when you're engaging all the people and have fun and provide experiences for people who maybe they didn't want to go to the chocolate festival, right? Maybe they had kids and they just wanted to sit down and eat popcorn and watch, in some cases, very silly movies. Yeah, very silly. Was that your idea? I mean, there was a great sponsor for it. It probably didn't inure to the benefit of the festival. But who came up with that idea? Was that something that came from you guys, or?
Our committee did discuss it because usually the Friday they work with the theater on the Christmas on Main doing a movie. So we thought, hey, if they're open to the idea of letting us, do something on Saturday. And then Joe from the heart of Rushville went and got it done. So
great. And I got to say that, having the heart of Rushville, Rush County Tourism, having the mayor's office be so involved, having somebody in the Economic Development Council that's helping moving tables around. I mean, that pitching in that way is very, very cool. I must admit. And what Mike says at Encore is that it wasn't Camino Real, it was Camino Verde, which is an Ecuadorian bean. So the mix of Zorzal, which is the Dominican Republic, and this bean. Hey, Tandy, if you need to go, because it's a work day for you.
I have a couple more projects I can work on at home, and then I'll have to sneak out of here in the next half an hour.
Gotcha. I just want everybody to know. So what I do. So did any of you try the ube cake, which was at the dinner on Friday night? Do people know what ube is?
I know what ube is, but I didn't try it because Friday was like,
I have eaten so much. It was really, I think, an overload. Next time we need to do it in little pieces. It was too much. I was cheesecake and then fried chicken. And then so it was just not a chance to eat everything. Some bonbons that were also fantastic. So
yeah.
And then I think it was from the little yellow shop that had those bonbons also with different types of flavors.
Yellowbird, yeah.
So
right.
Ube cake had to stay out, and I missed it. Yeah.
So
did you get their bar?
Chalks and boxes.
Yeah.
Chalks and boxes in Chicago. I mean, they own a cacao farm on Samar Island in the Philippines. So it's a different origin than most Philippine cocoa, which comes from Davao, which is on the island of Mindanao, I believe. And so number one, just like, okay, this is a white chocolate bar, but the ube is this purple potato like thing. And it is the center of like Philippine dessert culture. I mean, it is amazing. I mean, Tandy, you're smelling this. What do you think about this smell? You open it up and I go,
oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Like vanilla and cake. It's so funny because I just had one of my friends did an ube pie with cardamom whipped cream for Thanksgiving that I did yesterday. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it reminds me of that. It's like sweet. And I have a lot of Filipino friends too that love to do ube.
Yeah, no,
awesome.
it's number one, like, if you want to do, right, a flavored white chocolate or a colored white chocolate, working with a natural food ingredient is the best way to do it. So, I mean, the aroma of this, the challenge for me is how sweet is it going to be? But, oh, wow. There's a texture in this. This is not as smooth as I would expect a white chocolate to be. Yeah.
It's nice though because it kind of reminds you of like a starchy kind of potato.
Well, it's taro root. That's what it is, right? So, and wow. I mean, if you're a chocolate lover or craft chocolate lover out there, and you say, "Ooh, white chocolate, ick," right? I'm not going to try that. I got to say, you need to open up your eyes. I mean, and again, Tandy, I think this is where you come in, and Lila, where I think that you as an ingredient supplier can also come in, right? Because you're bringing these unusual flavors that can be incorporated in many different ways. I mean, I'm going, oh my God, that is insanely good. And now what I want to do is I want to stop this right now, and I'm going to go and finish the entire bar right now. I mean, do you get that sense of more out of it? It's hit this bliss point. Oh, yum. I love the texture. I love, how creamy it is, the aroma. It's not too sweet, which is great.
No, it's super nice.
Oh, yeah. And,
definitely my style.
I was saying that's one of the reasons why I asked. There's another one. This is from Mademoiselle Miel. And where are they from, Dustin?
They're in Minnesota.
They're in Minnesota.
Dwar is in Michigan.
Dwar is in Michigan. And they got a bunch of really, really interesting flavored bars. And this is a cranberry and wild rice bar. So cacao butter, maple sugar, wild rice, and cranberry. Not even any milk, right? So it's gluten-free and dairy-free. And there is a sort of, umami is not the right word. And vegetal is also not the right word. But there's this fun, the cranberry, it just jumps out at you. But there's this base to it, which comes from the rice. So they're refining wild rice into the cocoa butter. I mean, it's a very, very cool idea. I mean, and it has, a similar kind of effect as the ube bar. Very, very different. But, as everybody saw, I mean, it was an amazing color, as well. And this one also, International Chocolate Awards 2024, America's Silver, right? So that's another thing. If this just wasn't, local chocolate makers, which would have been okay if it was just local chocolate makers, but there was a lot of, international award-winning chocolate that was there, which was being presented. I've got a bar, I hope I get to it, from Maverick Chocolate. They're 80% Tanzania, which was a Good Food Awards winner. I mean, haven't been able to go over all of them, but just insane. I've got so many more to do. It's like, how am I going to be able to get through all of them? But this is the one from Dwar Chocolate. I'm sorry?
That was bold of you, Clay, to try to do them all.
Yeah,
Very
well, it's
bold.
only a dozen. I did 10 of the Hind and Vera when I came back from Rotterdam. But Dwar is owned by not Rajani is her name. And she does this in her spare time. So she's not a full-time chocolatier. And she's working bean to bar in Michigan. But everything she does is through the lens of her heritage. She's Indian, which you would expect from the name like Raj or Rajani. Not Raj. I'm sorry. She doesn't like to be called Raj, Rajani. But this is a spicy peanut crunch bar, right? Which is, I love peanuts. I love Indian spice blends, which this one has got clove, cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, maize. I think that's corn, but it's spelled M-A-Z-E. Maize, corn, star anise, fennel, and candied spicy peanuts. And oh my gosh. I love the texture, the difference between the texture of the chocolate and the texture of the peanuts, and then the spicy crunch, the caramel crunch you have to bite through. And the spices come in, and there's fruitiness from the chocolate, and they bounce back and forth.
Spicy.
And the spice gets you.
I was like, I got one of her Mango Madness bars, and it took my breath away, but it was so good.
Yeah. This is a place where, in a small festival like this, so either 25 chocolate exhibitors or something like that, Justin?
Yeah, roughly about 23 or so. One couldn't make it. But yeah, and I was the only one from Indiana. So you have everybody coming from far to be part of it, which was amazing. And all these people were just so lovely. They're just so nice. We're great people, and I was so happy to meet all of them too. So
yeah, one of the great things about the chocolate community is you need to be a real miserable SOB to be miserable around chocolate. I mean, some people manage to do it, but for the most part, chocolate and pastry and things like that have a tendency to attract people of a particular mindset.
When I work with chocolate, like making confections, I can be mean though, because that stresses me out. Now, just
how about you,
making,
Tandy? Do you get stressed out when you're in the workshop making stuff? Do you get stressed out?
Well, I still do chocolate as a part-time gig too. So it's like my full-time, part-time job. So I feel like I'm always in a constant state of stress, but it's good stress, fun stress. It's delicious stress.
All right. So, what I'm going to do is, I think I need to call it quits here, but I've got an Ask Me Anything News AMA episode on this coming Friday. And on Tuesday, I'm sort of going to do a week from today. I think I'm going to do sort of like a holiday gift giving episode. And I'm going to go through all the rest of these chocolates while I'm there. And so I'll make sure that nobody is given short shrift to what they're doing. Because I think that because I made the mistake of having the spicy one towards the end, I think that anything else I'm going to do is I'm lost in terms of any kind of objective tasting. But I will get to everything, I promise everyone. So Dustin and Lila, while you're here, and Tandy, while you're here, 2025 Craft Chocolate Challenge. I mean, if you go over to the Chocolate Life right now, here is the form. It's empty. There are no entries yet. So tell us about the 2025 Craft Chocolate Challenge, Dustin.
We do have some entries. I just haven't updated it yet. I've been a little busy, but I promise I will get to that. But we do have some entries on the form, and actually I have some in hand now, so I can start updating that as well. And yeah, we can announce that Tandy is our first master. So a master means that you've won an award in 3 seasons and you are no longer eligible to participate because you're just that dang good. So,
and it was in 3 different categories. I got 1 in each before I snuck out.
You're muted, Clay.
I was saying she ever forever and ever and ever she can no longer do it, or she has to wait a year, or what?
No, like if she wants her bars to be reviewed, we can do that. I'm perfectly fine with doing that. But as for the contest side, that part is over. She is the master. She doesn't need us to tell her that her chocolate is award-winning anymore. But if she decides, especially since she's always working up new recipes, if she wants us to taste something that she has to give feedback on it, and that is something that we can offer the masters as well. We'll always be able to make space for them if they want us to do that. So, yes. And we give them a little space. She's even got her own little space on the website.
Yep. Right. And I got to say, Tandy brought her medals with her. She has 4 of them. Right. She brought her medals with her. I was hoping that she'd wear them sort of like an Olympian would, like walk around. Right. I wanted, this to come with a chain and I could wear it around my neck like Flava Flav, like a big clock or something like that. It didn't happen. And I don't know how well it would be received, but it's just one of those fleeting kinds of things. So 2025 Craft Chocolate Challenge is currently accepting entries. You can go to and I'll put the link to this on the post for today. You can go to the Craft Chocolate Challenge Season 4 webpage. You can click on the entry form. You can go and enter. Dustin will enter all the entries on this page, and that's unusual. Normally you don't know who the entries are before judging begins, so I think this is very cool. You want me to be a judge again this year? Hey, you know what, Tandy, right, as a master, you've disappeared slightly, hopefully you can hear me. Tandy, as a master, do you think that you would be willing to be a judge this year? Because I think that would be very cool.
I'm trying to convince them. We were just discussing.
So as the head judge, as last year's head judge, and maybe I'll get it again.
Yeah,
right? I would recommend.
As long as the season and temperature of Phoenix is good, I'm in.
It should be judging sometime end of March or something like that, Dustin.
I would be shipping chocolate at the end of February, beginning of March, but I organize things in advance, not kind of on the fly. So probably have everybody I need for this year, but next year definitely
Ooh,
would like to do
dang.
that.
Dang. Listen, he hasn't even asked me to do it, so I don't
I
even know if I'm going to
figured
be
we had this conversation, and I figured it was a yes.
Anyway,
So
I'm just joking. So a couple other things. So Mark and Yuri from Blue Spruce Chocolates are connecting. Thanks for the update on the festival. Sorry we missed it. Hi to everybody. Mark, reach out right now. Make sure that you're on the list, because I think this is exactly the kind of festival that you want to be at, to showcase what it is that you're doing, knowing the history that you've been there.
I also have, Mark, I also have a mystery box. It's one of the people that because he uses also the passion fruit. I was like, if we have one left, I'll send you one. So Mark, you should be getting one. It will be shipped out this week. I'm still catching up too.
So Mike at Encore says, sounds like we need a master class competition. Oh, that could be an interesting idea. Not this year, but the next time if we have enough masters.
We got one right now, so it'd be pretty.
Okay. Well, okay,
pretty easy.
everybody.
That makes it easy.
Yeah. A special category, master class category of 1. Anyway, and then also from Mike, I'm knee deep in the corporate order, but open tomorrow all day long. Oh, so this is Mike going back and forth about, okay, so this is one of the things that I think the festival did. People got a chance, makers who knew of each other got a chance to taste their chocolate, got a chance to meet in person. It was, I think it was a really, really phenomenal experience. I'm excited about continuing. And I got to say, Dustin, one of the things, I don't know, Lila, if you also had this experience, and Tandy, if you had this experience, but a number of the exhibitors came to me and said that from an organizational perspective, right, that the attention to detail that was harnessed, right, with grace under pressure and a good sense of humor, that was exhibited by Barb specifically, was just a key to the success of this festival. And so in that respect, your ability to delegate all of this stuff to somebody like Barb was just, I want everybody to know that, if you've been to a festival, no matter how small it is, no matter how big it is, trying to get the attention of somebody to help answer your questions and get stuff done for you can be very hard. And Barb, herself personally, and the crew that she marshaled did a great job. And I want to express those thanks from me and from all of the other people. I've heard people say this was the best organized festival they'd ever been to. So I do want to pass that along and acknowledge it publicly. So with that, Tandy, you're in the midst of all this kind of stuff. Any last minute thoughts you want to share about this year's festival, and to say to everybody, well, yeah, you got to be at this one next year. Like that's,
No, I think, like they said, I think they did an amazing job. It was way more than I expected. I honestly expected it to be a little more like hometown small vibes, but the fact that everybody got to do their own speaking, and then we had, the coordinated events and the dinners, it was a fully orchestrated festival, which I thought was amazing. And we talked about some fun, cool things to do for the makers, which obviously all of us makers love, but yeah, from a community standpoint, this is going to be a destination. I'm really excited to see it grow.
Gotcha. Hey, Lila, how about you? Your thoughts about this?
Nice. I mean, as the organizational part, I normally don't go to festivals. It's not normally something we focus on, because we believe that craft makers go there to sell their products. So we don't want to be a disturbance and try to mix or distract them from that. But I liked so much this festival because it really brought together all the aspects of the craft making and all the community. And I think it was an ideal location in the sense that it was just out of nowhere. It brought us more together. And the organization, what everyone said, was just fantastic. What I said from the beginning, for me, it was just a magical moment. I think we all went out of the festival feeling very hyped, very like something fantastic happened, a dream happened. And I'm very excited for next year. I think it's going to have all the towns back again. We're going to have all the town in. And Dustin did a fantastic job. Barb, again, you two played. We all, I think, somehow contributed. And everyone, all the makers that came, made it just outstanding. They were so like a team. It was not, we were not trying to make everyone happy, but everyone brought their happiness, and it made it gigantic.
Love that line. Before I jump in, before I ask you that same question, Dustin, because I think it's really important, I want to end on you. I want to talk to that point about being in a small town, which is I have been involved in the organization and delivery of major events in Las Vegas, bringing pastry chefs and chocolatiers from around the country and around the world into Las Vegas. And one of the challenges is at 5 o'clock, when the festival is over, all of the energy of the festival dissipates because everybody wants to go, oh, I need to go to this restaurant, or I need to go to this restaurant, or I need to go see this pastry chef. And there's no way to keep everybody together. And that presents a challenge in a small town, which is how do you keep the energy of the festival going after, it's the public part of it is done for the day, right? And I think that that's something that a small town atmosphere like Rushville, with everybody who came together to do it, accomplished extremely well. And it's the high bar that you set. You had no expectations for this year, but I got you, Tandy, Lila, all these other people. You have huge expectations for next year, right? And before I'll finish with you, just a quick one from Elmer, who says, thank you to Barb, Dustin, and the rest of the volunteers at Rushville. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks to everybody who had a hand in making this work this year. So Dustin, right, take us out.
So it started as, kind of Dustin's crazy idea, Dustin's festival, right? And I had the vision a little bit, and then Barb was amazing. So Barb came in, and then we built our team, and it's not my festival, it is our festival. So everybody made this thing great. So I might have been a little bit of the spark. I mean, there's probably not going to be a chocolate festival in Rushville without me, because there's no other makers in Rushville, right? So, but I can't take credit for anything else. Everybody
no other makers in Rushville yet.
Yet. I don't know. So anyway, so yeah, Barb was amazing. So she did her thing with the vendors. That was fantastic. And then you have the locals with connecting with everything, like I mentioned too, which was fantastic. The thing is, nobody knew what was coming. Barb maybe knew more than anybody because she had the experience of other festivals, but no one really knew what was coming, but now they do. So we have more pressure, but we also have that experience, and our team knows what to expect and how to grow. And it's pretty exciting. Everybody's still on cloud 9 here because of it. And I just feel like this is something magical is happening here. And I'm glad it happened the way it did. And I'm looking forward to growing it. However it intends to grow.
Great. And with that, I want to head out with saying this is the homepage of TheChocolateLife.com right now on the screen. This episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, is sponsored by the members of The Chocolate Life. And I need to give a quick shout out to Lila because, Cocoa Supply has been a great supporter and collaborator with what it is that I'm doing, The Chocolate Life. And I do want to mention that as well. So I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you, Tandy, for being here. I know there were some technical connection problems right at the very beginning. We got those sorted out. Lila, it's always a pleasure to see your face. Excuse me. I was going to say smiling face in there, and that became smace. So to see your face and to hear from you, Dustin. Again, just a huge pleasure as well. Thank you very much for inviting us all into your home in Rushville, Indiana for the inaugural Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival. And I am looking forward to being at the next one. And I am reminded, as I do end today's stream, right, as I remind every stream, that if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Until the next time, everybody, thanks to all of you. Thanks to everybody who watched and stayed through to the end. We'll be back here very, very shortly and looking forward to your contribution and participation and to see you next year at the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival. Ciao, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.